to move forward. I've never gotten a call back from the person that's supposed to be the guidance counselor out there at Carvers Bay. So I guess sometime when a person is at a position at a long time, you think this is your school, and you don't have to answer to nobody. So I am very unhappy with what's going on at Carvers Bay. Nothing against the fact that we're doing 3 other schools, but when I hand deliver, which I didn't do with these other schools, sent them an email, they replied to me, we discussed certain things, and they let me know the dates and time, and we had everything, and I got their scholarships, and we have presented their scholarships. We moved forward. But I'm concerned about who's making the major decisions on who are we bringing in our community to help and to teach and to lead our young men and young ladies. Because I know what's going on at Carvers Bay is not on up and up, especially at the high school. So I don't know who needs to look into that. I put that on you, Mr. Superintendent, because you're the man that's understanding your family and everybody's coming to Georgetown this year. Am I right?
Repeat the question.
I understand your family and they're moving here to Georgetown. Okay, you've been the superintendent for what, 3 years? For how many years?
Almost 2.
Almost 2, but anyway, I'm like this. I'm gonna say like they do certain things the way I'm from. The one thing I know in the future, just like they say, I'm gonna hire you if you're gonna bring you and your family here. I'm gonna hire you to be this NFL head coach or coordinator because you're gonna bring you and your family here. I don't believe that you can run a business and if you got to be going somewhere to accommodate your family and your kids because you're not totally committed to here. This is what I'm looking for, and I'm glad that you made that decision, you made that move. I think you have, because if you haven't, we got to look at you. Because I know, and I probably have more exposure than anybody in it. That's why Mark Davis wants me to bring the Blueprint Leadership Academy that we started here in Georgetown to Las Vegas. And it's not about me, because I don't have no kids there, but all of them are my kids. So I want us to look at who are we bringing in our community to teach our kids, and who are we bringing that leading these schools? That's very important. And I'm very concerned about what's going on in Carvers Bay. We need to launch a major investigation out there. I mean major, because I hadn't gotten nothing back, and I hand delivered out there twice. Okay? So I'd appreciate somebody give me an update on that in the next couple of weeks, because I'm very concerned about what's going on out there. And that's the most rural area in Georgetown. And you ain't gonna tell me no young man or young lady don't need some help out there. I know they do. But thank you very much. Anybody got a question for me? I gave you some information, and you look at the application that was submitted to them. How long did it take to fill out that application? What, 10 minutes? Look at it. Y'all got it in front of you. Huh? I don't care about no time. I ain't on that time. I'm on life.
Yes, you are.
I keep it real. Y'all have a good night. I'm out of here.
Mr. Park. Good. Have a good day, Mr. Parker.
I am.
Okay. Next, we have Mr. Marvin Neal. His topic of concern is leadership in schools.
Good evening to Superintendent, Chairman Lance, board members. I'm here tonight also to talk about Carvers Bay also, but on a different note. I do understand that they were recognized name of one of the School of Excellence as part of the ACT, American National Effort to Increase the Number of First-Generation College Students and Low-Income Families Pursuing College Degrees or Higher Education Credentials. So that's something good about Carvers Bay. And that speaks of the leadership also. But I'm also here tonight to speak about leadership in the Georgetown County School District. We have a leadership situation that needs to be addressed, and I think we need to have it addressed immediately. When the voices of black children, black principals, black faculty staff is silenced because of the discriminatory practices, I think we are digressing. Over the past 2 years, we've been challenged with COVID-19, voters' rights, redistricting, housing shortage, unfair wages, and livable wages. For the underserved employees of Georgetown County School District, it can't get worse, but it gets worse. I've been approached, had some intentional communication at the schools and in the communities of Georgetown County School District. Most recently, we had a new and silent challenge that is here: the disrespectful and unfair treatment of black principals in Georgetown County and black staff and black teachers that work under their supervision, by black teachers that works under their supervision, by teachers that works under their supervision. I cannot say this is new, but I definitely could say it is worse. At this school district, where white teachers could allegedly show inappropriate behavior towards a principal and allegedly goes to Human Resources Department, headed by Doug Jenkins, because there's two departments, it's a black and a white, and get time off after she have been derelict in her duties by leaving her class unattended and leaving the school grounds. That's a dereliction of duty. In the military, we call that AWOR. Due to complaints from the same subject, the principal has been investigated. Climate survey. As I recall, this is the same teacher that sent out Black Lives Matter posts. And I think some of you may recall that if you were on the school board at the time. On Facebook, among other forms of unwarranted behavior that just happened recently at the school. That needs to be addressed and taken care of. Maryville Elementary, another black principal, removed after complaints by disgruntled teachers again. Climate survey conducted. In my studies there, a similar instance and the same issues in other schools in Georgetown County School District. When black principals do their job, it don't demand a climate survey when they're supervising white teachers. I think we need to address that. And I think the board needs to address that, because I can't address it anymore. At Howard Alternative School, the high school students there, and I witnessed this myself, were given a test while I was standing there and given the answers to the test the same time. And the reason why they were given the answers was to keep them quiet in class. We don't need our students quiet by giving them the answers to the tests. We can't move students forward like that. Randy Walker was up there with me that day. No presence of leadership at that alternative school, none. I walked in and out as I choose in those rooms, and the teacher just gave me leadway. It's like she wasn't even there. Where's the climate survey? It happened at Maryville, and it happened at Carvers Bay High. So every school needs a climate survey. Georgetown Middle, that school is in chaos. You have about $400,000 worth of leadership there and 4 people, maybe more than that. Still waiting on the climate survey. Walkmore Middle, it's no different. They done lost half of the teachers out there. I'm still asking where's the climate survey out there also. EIP students are at a disservice, and I've witnessed that personally, because there's no programs to rehabilitate students. The question is now, are we still about teaching our children or justifying white privilege in our schools? The standards should be the same across the board. All should get a climate survey if that's the case. All principals should be supported by the superintendent of the schools. We hired him to do that. Not sub entities or sub managers, that's fine. The principals belongs to the superintendent of the schools, and they all should get the same visitation and treatment across the board. That might need a climate survey. We still have livable wages issue for custodians, cafeteria workers, teachers, bus drivers, etc. Anything under $15 an hour we have definitely did a disservice to our people. During the pandemic, we couldn't do without janitors and custodians. We could not do without bus drivers. But yet still, we keep them under the bus. Everybody at the top could get a raise, across the board raise, 3%. You imagine 3% of 100,000 versus 3% of 12,000. And you see what I'm talking about. Everybody don't always need a raise across the board. We are doing a disservice to those that's really working in Georgetown County School District at this top-heavy administration we have here. I've heard on several occasions that the board don't handle personnel issues, which I totally agree, Dr. Lance, because I've heard you said it. But one thing you handle, you hire the superintendent. That's your personnel. Speaking with faculties and staff and support from the district, the superintendent is not visible in these schools. We need visibility. In the black schools also. We need more visibility. That supports those administrators and black administrators that being moved and being pushed out by those that they're supervised. The question I would like to leave tonight with, have we made the right choice 2 years ago? And we need to answer that question. Y'all need to answer that question. Because what's going on right now is not fair to our students, to our children, to the faculty, to the staff. There's no excuse why Georgetown County School District should not be moving forward. We have everything we need. Might have more money than we need.
Thank you, Mr. Neal.
Black principals are not the problem. Unfair treatment, discriminatory practices are the problem. Y'all need to understand that. Policy should reflect corrective measures without biases and not based on skin tone. When leadership is absent, chaos is present. School board members, we need answers now. We need answers now. And I'm looking at you, Mr. Cafaro, because I really think the school board, that board right there, need you, Dr. Lance, Ms. Patty Hamill, you all have worked here and know what it takes to move the schools forward. Y'all need to make that happen. Y'all need to make that happen. I think you all know what I'm talking about. I'm gonna leave you. Did we make the right decision? And if not, we need to make another decision. 25 retirees, top heavy in Georgetown County School District, sucking the wind out of the salary and the budget in Georgetown County School District. They need to go home. No one is that good, and no one is indispensable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Next, we have Mr. Wesley Gibson.
Yes, sir.
That's my mother's name, so just sit tight.
Got a good mother.
Actually, you're my people, but we'll leave it up for another day, all right? This conversation is miscellaneous.
Yes, sir. I'm Wesley Gibson from Citizens for Progress. And first, on behalf of Antoine Maybank, I'd like to thank this board and Superintendent Price for the award that you gave to Antoine on Antoine Maybank Day, which was April 23rd of this year, where we named the track and field at Beck right outside here after him. For those who do not know who Antoine Maybank is, he's the 1996 Olympic champion in the 4x400 relay from Georgetown High, and he thanks you. But on a second note, when I walked in here tonight, I see pictures of teachers and office workers who have done outstanding things and are recognized. Antoine had a life-size mural in Georgetown High gym that was up there, and I saw that mural every time I took my kids. My kids are 40 and 35. I used to take them to the games and see that mural up on the wall and tell them that maybe you could do that. Mysteriously, not mysteriously, I'll say mysteriously, that mural was covered up. And I talked to the principal of that school at that time, and he told me that Antoine was good with that. He knew it was being covered up for some reason or other. That was a lie. But I can see people lined up this wall. Antoine Maybank is one of 3 people from South Carolina in 100 years that have won a gold medal. Do you know how outstanding that is? We have football players. One was just here tonight. But if you go to Carvers Bay, you'll see jerseys up because they're proud of people from their school that did extraordinary things. You may never see another gold medalist from Georgetown. And I'm asking Mr. Price to look into that matter, and if you can't get a mural, get one of those fat heads that they got from the NFL and put it up there. But recognize this guy. In April 4th, 1996, he put Georgetown on the world map. He wasn't a pro football player, he was the best in the world. And I think his mural deserves to go back up there just like all these pictures are up here forever. That mural will be there forever. That gave me the catalyst to try to get that park named after him, and guess what? That rock out there, it ain't moving, ever. And his mural should be up there forever to give kids an inspiration to know that they can be just like him. And if you could have seen the kids that held the gold medal, but none of y'all even held the gold medal, a real gold medal, took pictures with it. He let that happen because he cares about Georgetown. It's time for Georgetown District. If in my school in Pennsylvania, if we had an Olympic gold medalist, it'd be all over the world. It would be all over the world. But here in Georgetown, they took down the wall of fame that they had up in that school. But you got one here. Put one back at Georgetown High. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Lance, Dr. Lance, I want to make a comment, sir. I'm sorry, we don't usually do this, but I wasn't the principal that you spoke to, was I?
No, Craig Evans was the principal.
Thank you, because that mural was on there.
Yeah.
It would still be on there if I was
Craig Evans was the principal I spoke to.
don't mention any. I just want my name to be clear. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I think that was the last one.
Thank you.
If anybody else came in, sometimes we do this, and you didn't fill out one of these, but you feel passionate about something, you know, it's your opportunity. Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Marianne Owens. I am a 29th year teacher of Georgetown County School District. I'm a graduate of Georgetown High School who graduated the same year as Antoine Maybank, and we ran track together. Wow. I taught 20 years at Georgetown High School, and I am finishing my 9th year at Howard Adult Center and Howard Alternative School. I am retiring June 3rd, and I have nothing to lose, so let me tell you like it is. Howard Adult Center is a hidden gem in our community. We help countless adults from 17 years on up earn their high school diplomas or their GEDs. We help turn people who have no hope into productive citizens for this county. We take people who have not been successful at our high schools, and we help them find success We do that with a limited staff. We do that with a part-time counselor. We do that with a part-time special ed teacher. We are on track to have at least 40, if not 50-plus graduates at our graduation ceremony next Thursday, which is pretty doggone close to the lowest, smallest school in our district. Howard Alternative School is a disservice to our students. We are not staffed adequately. We have no full-time mental health counselor. We have no guidance counselor at all. We have one middle school teacher who reports to work, has students from the moment she comes in until the moment she leaves, supervises them during lunch, does not have a planning period, has to get supervision for her class to go to the restroom. And we expect her to take 6th through 8th graders in all 4 subjects and help them be successful. We have 4 high school teachers who are part of the adult ed program. Each of us serves 90 minutes to 2 hours upstairs with our students. Right now we have over 30 on our roster. Only because most of them don't show up every day do we have 15, 16, 17 a day instead. Over 50% of those have IEPs. And if you were to walk in any day of the week, you would see maybe 4 or 5 working on schoolwork. Yesterday, I had 2 students ask me for help with work. The greatest joy that I get out of working upstairs is helping students who ask for help. And I could not help them. Do you know why? Because I couldn't get the rest to settle down. I'm a 29-year veteran. We have no SRO. We have one administrator who is also in charge of the hearings in the district, which means he is not a full-time administrator, not because he doesn't want to be, because he can't physically do it. If we need to examine anything in this county, it's Howard. We need more staffing in the adult center. We need more staffing in the alternative program. We are not sending students back to their home schools better. We are sending them worse. We're not helping them learn how to deal with why they got there in the first place, which is why most of our students are repeaters. Not repeaters of their grade level, which they will be, but repeaters at Howard. It's time to make a change. And it can start with y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. A lot to swallow, but use this news. Moving along, the next order of business is approval of minutes. I trust, and it appears that everybody have had the opportunity to visit the minutes of May 3rd. So without any other comments, do I have a motion? It's been moved and second that we accepted the approval of the minutes. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, none. Minutes been approved. Adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as
So
presented?
moved. So moved.
All right.
Second?
It's been moved and properly second that we accept the adoption of the agenda as presented. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers? None. Ayes have it. Adoption of the agenda. You have one action item tonight, and that's personal list, Dr. Myrtle Milton and Mr. Doug Jenkins. Is there anything you need to question, anybody? Do I have a motion? The administration recommends the approval of the personnel list as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved and properly second that we accept the personnel list as presented. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers? None. Agenda is adopted. Now to hear all the good news, information items. The first we have here is from the money lady. And Mr. Dorman, one of the money men. Okay.
Yes, sir. Dr. Lance, board members, Mr. Price. Tonight, we have Mr. Bob Dameron with us. He is our financial advisor with Compass Municipal Securities. We also have Franny Heiser on the phone. If you have any questions, she is out of the country, and we could not get her connected, linked up with Teams, but she is on the phone and is available to answer questions. And Bob is going to take you through a recap of our annual borrow, and then talk to you about what we will present at the next meeting for you to approve.
Thank you, Lisa, and it's good to be back with you all again for my annual update. The first, I think you have a brochure that was put out or given to you. The first page after the initial cover is the debt capsule report. This is a reflection of what the school district currently is obligated to repay. As you can see, the 2019 and the 2020 on that list are referendum bonds. We're showing a 22 in gray, which would be part of the resolution that you all hopefully will adopt at the next board meeting. The 8% debt has, for the most part, been paid off. We have a 2010 qualified school construction bond. This is a bond that was issued back in 2010 as part of the stimulus package from then the last recessionary time that we had, whereas the school district was able to access $17 million with an interest rate of less than 1%. The federal government is subsidizing the interest rates to the point of where all the district pays is 0.078%. Those bonds have been paying off since 2010 or paying down on schedule, and they will mature, final maturity of 2025. That is part of your 8% debt limit. Those of you that have been on the board for a long time know that at one point in time, your 8% debt limit was pretty tight. The good news is you've paid off almost all of the outstanding 8%. So the vast majority, as you can see on this sheet, that's still left is just the referendum bonds. And the good side is that in a storm-prone area such as Georgetown County is, it's good to have a good solid 8% debt capacity that's unused that you can go to should the event, God forbid, we have a storm that comes through and you need to access those funds quickly. As you can see, none of the bonds are due or callable at this point in time. That means we can't refinance them and get a lower interest rate until that call date. March 28th is the date on the two referendum bonds, but they're at roughly 3%. So the way the market is today, we could not get a 3% interest rate for you anymore. The bond market has gone up dramatically. You've seen what the Fed is doing with the rates. So the good news for the school district is that you have locked in all these referendum bonds of about $160 million that the voters approved 2 or 3 years ago at a very, very favorable rate, and it's locked in through 2044. So you're in good shape from that standpoint. The next page is a graph of the debt service payments, and this gives you a visual of where the capacity is looking going forward. The district has been at 28.5 mils of debt service for well over 10 years, and so the district has continued to tell us they want to manage the capital needs, the administration's capital request for them to manage those needs under the direction of the board to not exceed 28.5 mils. Under this column, you will see in column 22 that the 28.5 mils is actually a little higher than what it is in the other years. This was because the debt service fund, the amount of money that those 28 mills were generating actually had exceeded what we had projected. And we like to always be on that side of exceeding, getting more money in than what we're projecting to spend. And so every so often we will right-size that bond issue and pull some of that money back out of the debt service fund through the issuance of a GO bond short-term and allow you all to access and utilize those funds. So again, as you can see, this target continues to be 28.5 mills as far as the future would go. Let's look at the next page, which is the numbers behind it. And the column I want you to focus on is column G. This is the amount that we're estimating on a very conservative basis will be available to the school district in the future each year for capital. And so you can see that next year we're estimating about $5 million, and as the bonds begin to pay off, the qualified school construction bonds get paid off, you can see that figure is going to gradually increase from $6 to $7 to $8 million. So you've got a good solid path. You've got the ability for capital to be funded through annual bonds, which is a very low cost of borrowing. The next page is your cash flow report. And this generates information for you to show where the money comes from. What does the 28 mills generate? How does it get there? And what's been the history in the past? Under column C, you will notice that the estimated growth figures for the last 3 years have been 1.2%, 2.19, and 2.68. We're not calculating any growth for this coming year, but after June 30th, Lisa and I will work with those numbers. We'll see what that growth rate has been. But assuming there's been no growth rate whatsoever, the request this year has been for $4 million minimum. So that's what we're going to have funded initially, but as we get that growth figure and we also look at the June 30th debt service fund balance, we may be able to go up a little bit and have a little more money for capital needs. We want to match that so that we keep that in line with what we're requesting each year. Going forward in this forecast of how much is available, you can see I'm only using a 1% growth factor. The district has exceeded that every year for the last 3 years, so we anticipate this year to be no change. Again, that's being a very conservative analysis of where we look forward. And as you can see on this sheet, we're targeting the millage not to go up in the future under the 28.5 mills. The next page is a constitutional debt limit report. And this is what I alluded to early on in the presentation, that you all now have about $37 million of unused 8% debt capacity. It means that you all could issue up to that amount without another referendum. If you do issue up to that amount, there could be an impact on millage, obviously. But again, this is your ace in the hole, the ability for the district to borrow money from a capital needs standpoint on a very quick basis, which is outstanding. Most school districts do not have this much 8% debt capacity, and Georgetown County School District is very fortunate to be at that level. One point that I will note on it is it's got a qualified school construction bond escrow balance. This is the qualified school construction bonds. The way they work is they're all due at the term. But the district each year, to have all the money necessary at the term so we don't have a big spike in payments, has been putting money aside in an escrow account that's actually earning interest as well. And so this escrow account on that $17 million is about $11.5 million already, and before the maturity, it will be the full $17 million. So you technically have that amount of capacity. Again, it's a very, very solid report on the debt structure of where the school district is, and I think reflects a pretty bright future of what you're going to be able to borrow going forward in future years. The only other item that we have is the resolution to issue through SCAGO. SCAGO is the South Carolina Association of Governmental Organizations. You all have issued through that program several years in the past. It's where a lot of school districts pool their borrowing capacity together issue the bonds at one time on the New York money markets. That way you get a rating at a very, very low cost of issuance. It's much less than if Ms. Heiser and I would actually do a standalone bond issue for Georgetown. So we've been having you all in the program because it is your lowest cost of issuance. And this year, that resolution has a not to exceed of $5 million. We will issue whatever we work through the process and make sure that there's no millage increase and that we're maintaining a strong debt service reserve. But we would have the ability to go up to $5 million if you adopt the resolution. And Franny, is she online, Lisa?
She's supposed to be.
Yeah, I'll let Franny go over the resolution.
I'm here, Bob.
Yeah, do you want to go over the resolution?
Sure, I'll be glad to. And actually, I'm able to dial in and be with y'all. This resolution is one that y'all have basically seen before. It authorizes, as Bob said, it authorizes borrowing up to $5 million through the SCAGO program, or separately if that would end up being the lowest cost of capital for the school district. It delegates to the superintendent the authority to make final decisions with regard to the actual sale of the bonds. And I'd be glad to answer any questions y'all might have. The plan is that you would be in SCAGO for this transaction because it should give you the low interest rate and the lowest cost of capital. We would sell this transaction in August and close in September. The resolution does include reimbursement language, so if any part of any of the projects need to move forward before you've actually borrowed or issued the bonds, you'd be able to reimburse the school district for those amounts that have been advanced.
Mr. Chair.
And again, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Yes, sir.
I have a question, and it's a very basic question. If you were to analyze all the school districts in South Carolina and give us an approximation of where we stand as far as, just like the SAT test, you got the what percentile? If we're in the 99th percentile, only 1% would have it better than we do as far as this report. And I sure don't want to go the other way and look at the 1 percentile because 99% would be better than us. Where would you say this report, this overall report, okay, globally, where would we stand? 50 percentile or higher, I would hope?
I'll take a shot at it, and Franny can have her opinions. I work with 40 of the school districts around the state. From a financial standpoint, if we look at 8% debt capacity, if we look at your millage rate comparative, if we look at the growth that's involved, you all are certainly in that top 5% for sure.
Top 5%?
Yes, sir.
Not the 5th percentile?
No, the top
Okay, right. Like the
5%.
95th percentile,
Yes.
perhaps?
Yeah.
Okay.
You are not one of my problem districts that I have to work with each year to try to figure out how we're going to fund technology, how we're going to fund capital needs and general maintenance. And Franny and I both work with some where we have those challenges. We do not have those challenges here. The board has taken a very proactive, I think, position on maintaining a strong debt management program. I certainly commend Lisa, Dr. Price, and all the previous superintendents in front of them, and more importantly, the board who's actually given that directive. So you certainly are one of the top school districts from a financial standpoint. Your fund balance is strong. I can't think of anything negative that would ever be impacted on what you're all doing here at this point in time. You do have more risk than some school districts do solely because of your location. You're on the coast. We all know what can happen and what can come off of the Atlantic Ocean from time to time. Nothing you can plan for, nothing you can do about it. But you have put yourself in a position to where you have a strong 8% debt capacity available to the district to deal with some of those type of issues.
Thank you.
Anybody else? normally, Dr. Darman, normally when you get into these, I call them really technical kind of financial situation, a lot of people, including yours truly, sometimes might have a question, but don't particularly know how to push it over to you, you know. So just because he is saying how fantastic you are doing right now, Lisa, by the time I get home tomorrow, you might hear, bim, bim, bim. I have a question. So, so taking it with a grain of salt, because a lot of this stuff I just don't quite understand, and I consider myself pretty fair when it comes to finances. In either case, if you kind of got something that you don't, it's all right not to know.
And I was going to say, Dr. Lance, Mr. Dameron is very quick to respond. If I can't answer it, he or Franny can help me answer it, so anytime.
Okay. All right, moving on to third. Okay, see you later, Mr. Dunn.
And again, Dr. Lance, board members, Mr. Price, I wanted to go over our third quarter report, which it is for March 22, 9 months. Just give you a little bit of details, some projections, answer any questions that you might have about it. At this point in time, we have collected $75.3 million of our revenue that we budgeted at $93.2 million. So we're basically right on track with last year, same percentage collection at this time last year. So I feel really good about that. The revenues, though, I will tell you, we did take a hit with our state funding because of the lower student numbers than we had projected. So thankfully, we collected a good bit of boat delinquent taxes. So that's going to help offset that. So it looks like I don't expect a tremendous amount of over collections in revenues, but I do expect that we will collect our budget. In the expenditures, on the expenditure side, did you have any questions about any of the revenues or how that looks? For the expenditures, with the salaries and fringes, which is most of our budget, we are, it's a little bit different than what we've looked at in the past because this year we've had a good number of contract teachers, teachers that, special ed, that we couldn't find, and so we had to contract with companies that supply those services. So those have been moved from salaries and fringes into purchase services. So you may notice a little bit of difference there. Overall, we're where we were last year. I do think that we will have some savings at the end of the year. We've got 3 positions that we know we'll have savings for because we put them in ESSER intentionally, and those are about $500,000, $600,000. So we know that's going to come forward. We've also, with the SRO grant that we didn't know we were going to get until after we'd approved our budget, we will have some savings there because we've been able to put officers in schools where before we were bringing them in hourly. So I think we will have some savings over and above the 3 positions that we intentionally budgeted for. So is there you have any other questions on the current year?
I'm sorry, Patty, go ahead.
The $800,000 that you're showing on the projections for next year, is that the savings that we're reflecting here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that's where the money is coming from.
Yes, ma'am.
On the other budget.
Yes, ma'am. It's some of these, just like I said, the SRO temporary help. We had several different places that we were able to save money, but we had already adopted this budget, so we've just been holding on to it. We had some positions we didn't, that we elected to not bring back and through attrition, and so those are adding into that as well.
And the positions that are at the bottom that we know that we can fund, with this savings on our other, on the other sheet that we're going to get to, I guess.
Yes, ma'am.
Those positions, like the 4 middle school positions, some of those things are coming back into our general fund budget in the savings. Is that what I understand?
Not yet, no, ma'am. Those are still going to be an ESSER for another year.
Okay. Because I didn't understand, and when we get there, I will
Yes,
ask.
ma'am.
Thank you, though.
Security is a big expense, okay? And I know
Yes,
you
sir.
mentioned about the SRO budget and so forth. You know, as a former principal, I would like to see how other schools did business, because you learn a lot from them. You know, you go around, you look at other schools. And the reason why I bring that up is because I know our Horry County, for instance, they have a combination. They use, I guess, the Myrtle Beach Police Department, Sheriff's Department, whatever, but also many of the schools have private security. Those private security people are retired police officers from all over the country, and they carry weapons. They just don't have the power to arrest. They work together with the police departments. And I was just wondering, have we even looked or explored the possibility of, again, we're in the business to try to save money too,
Sure.
and have quality SRI. I think Mr. Walters, could you perhaps?
Yeah, I'll be glad to address that. So we have looked at that before when Horry County went to it. We met with the same vendor. We looked at prices. There was not a substantial savings because so many of our positions were grant funded. All these new ones that are coming on are grant funded. If we went to private security, we'd have to pay, whereas these positions aren't going to cost us anything. Those grants for the elementary schools we just got not only pays for salaries, but training, vehicles, equipment, everything.
And that's earmarked, it has to go through the sheriff's department, is that what you're saying? The grant?
The grant goes through the sheriff's department for the schools outside the city limits. We got one for Maryville in the city limits. Howard did not qualify under the state program for it. And as for Howard, though, we have posted each month all-day coverage, but officers aren't signing up for it. I think a lot of it is they're so short-staffed that they're having to use their folks to work overtime right now anyway to cover shifts.
Right. And I thought about that too, Mr. Walters. Just like I heard the sheriff, I think it was maybe a month or so ago, where he had sort of a press conference talking about how the county council, he asked the county council for more personnel. And I thought about it and said, the personnel we have in the schools, perhaps they would be better used, in the street, and help the sheriff, help our community, and then we can look at alternative measures and still keep our schools safe. So again, just exploring possibilities.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So, is everyone okay with the financial report? We'll bring you another one after we get pretty close to closing the year. I think we said it's August maybe. So we'll bring you the final one for the year. And Brent. Okay. You want to pull a chair up? So tonight, we'd like to go over some budget requests with you, some overview of where we are, where we think we'll be. I know that if you've been reading the news, you know that we don't have a state budget. We don't know whether the Senate's version or the House's version or some combination of the two will be passed. In the meantime, we felt like we needed to go ahead and have a plan in place. We chose the more conservative one. With that said, though, we could have to come back to the board after you approve this budget, if you approved it, and make an amendment based on whatever the state ultimately ends up doing. So I'll jump right in. The proposed new money, and this is in the Senate, so they have what they call the stake in the ground, which is the money that we've been getting. We won't get any less than that. And then the new money. And with that and the additional Tier 3 property tax relief, which was the last one that the state passed, and that we get a figure every year from the is the Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office telling us how much that will be. And then we do have some additional local funding, and we've included all of that. And we did get a little bit of additional funding for the increases we're expecting for our employer part of the health and retirement expenses. So those all add up, and I will have the detail for you at the next meeting, but for tonight, it's right, it's 2.7, $2,748,962 is what we considered to be new available funds. And then, if you remember back in November, the board, as part of one of your meetings, voted, chose your top priorities for the 22-23 budget year. We tallied those, and this is a list of the top 10. Now, number 4, the academic/behavior interventions was your top priority this year that we're in currently. And we feel like we have addressed that very well with our ESSER funds and the other programs that we've been able to add thanks to ESSER. So that one we feel like is in good shape and is continuing to move on. The budget scenarios that we're presenting tonight will address the top 3 pretty convincingly, we think, and some actually would address more than one of the categories. So as we get into it, also, as the priority of what we've done was based on our cabinet and a small group decision. So any of these thoughts, the way we've ordered these or prioritized these, can be adjusted as you all see fit. The proposed general fund expenditure increases and decreases, the first part of that is the mandated ones. These are the ones we would not have any choice on. And like I said, we chose the Senate, which is 2,000. But we have to give teachers a step. We'll have to give them a raise. Right now we're thinking 2. Bus drivers will have to have a step, and we're increasing the bus driver scale 5% as the state is doing. And those are the salaries and benefits it takes to do those. The employer retirement rate is going up by another %. That makes next year's retirement rate 23.31%. That's a chunk. The increase in the group health employer rate, I don't remember having an increase this big in a number of years, but it's 18%, thankfully, beginning January. So we'll only have a 6-month adjustment for 22-23 with that. And again, this is all subject to change when we find out what the state's going to do. So we addressed the mandated things, and then these are the items that we, as cabinet and input from all the schools and departments, have recommended or are recommending that you all consider, and that is a step for all other classified staff. An increase to scales X, Y, and 2. Those are the 3 lowest scales on our salary scales. That would adjust a $12.23 hourly rate to $12.84. Increase to all other classified salary schedules of 2%. Plus, they'll get their step as well. Nurses would get a step. And we would like to increase the nurses scale by 2,000. And that would take a beginning RN salary from $30,965 to $32,955. I'm sorry, $955. So it's $32,955. We'd like to increase the daily rates for subs, and those are contracted through Kelly Services. We'd like to make the high school rate 95. It was 90. Bachelor's degree, 100, it was 95. And certified is 105 from 100. So it's a $5 a day increase.
I've got a question about the you said high school rate? Did you say that?
High school.
High school diploma.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
okay, I'm sorry.
high school diploma, GED, high school diploma.
That'd be $95 across the board, is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, Lisa, did you say a bus driver would go from $12.23 to $12.84
Yes, sir.
an hour? Now,
No, I'm sorry, that's the custodians, food service workers, instructional assistants. The bus drivers, let's see. did I-
okay, well, that's fine, but my question is, if the state comes in with the money, will that go up or is it going to remain the same?
If the state adds more to the schedule, we would go up as well.
Mr. Walker, just to let you know, the state right now with their budget proposal is specifically naming bus drivers in their raise. And so we
Not
got
other
that,
classified workers.
not the other positions. And what we're trying to do with this is to include a 5% raise for those other categories in addition to the bus drivers. So the state includes bus drivers in theirs, and we're including the other categories in ours.
Right, okay.
And I do have that, Mr. Walker. The $14.30 an hour is our lowest bus driver hourly rate, and it would go to $15.02.
Thanks.
But the rest of those folks, we're gonna still keep them in poverty.
Sir?
The 1280 folks,
That with their raise, it would be $12.84. Yes, sir.
now I call them the poverty folks, all right?
It's not even a dollar.
Do you have any idea, response, what it takes to move them beyond that?
We can certainly look at whatever you direct us to.
She'd like the $15 like everybody else.
Sir?
Why not the 15?
We'll do what you direct us to do.
That's still poverty, by the way. I just want you to know that.
And also, do we have comparable districts, what they're paying them? Because we seem to be pretty far behind.
I can't answer that.
It's not a livable wage is what I'm saying.
Ms. Milton?
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Walker, to address your question, I have been looking at a salary study with our neighboring districts and those who are like our districts, and right now we're right in line with those districts. Darlington, I don't have the list with me, but we have looked at those districts who are like in size of ours. Obviously, we're not competing with Horry County and Charleston County, but those districts like ours, we're in line with those districts as far as the hourly rates.
Based upon student population or based upon ability to pay? Because a lot of districts that are our size don't have the capital.
I'm looking at the population.
Population? But you understand what I just said?
Absolutely. We've had, and I don't have it with me, I can bring it the next time, but we've looked at least 7 districts, and some of them are population, some of them based on what they can handle as far as financially, and we are right in line, and we're constantly looking at that to make sure that we can get where we need to be.
You're looking at, some other districts, but I'm looking at what people need to live if they're going to work hard every day. That's what I'm looking at. Thank you.
Just one other observation. Dr. Milton, don't, that if you happen to run yourself in the red, then put it on us, okay? Don't, in other words, it's our money according to those people who put us in this office. We can't run, but we elected you. But what I'm trying to say is, maybe, I never like population comparisons for ability of districts to deal with. I mean, it's just not a good idea now. Because, there's a lot of district our size, and I don't know how they make it, all right? But so much for that, I'm through with that.
Yes, sir. So I think we have your instruction. We can go back and do some calculating.
Just call it an observation, all right?
An option. How about that? It'll be an
do.
option.
Please do.
We also have included a step for administrators. and an increase to the salary scale by 2%. And this is where, Ms. Hamill, you were speaking about the 800,000.
Yes.
These are the ones that we've identified at this point that we feel like we can say this would be true savings that we're not going to, that we could use for next year to help support the budget. So we feel like that's pretty good. We may end up coming back at maybe a little more. So we're just continuing to review and look at all those things as we go through right now. And again, all of these things can be reprioritized any way you all direct us to do it.
Do our administrators need any more money?
You know,
I just said, I was an administrator too now for 14 years. But I got paid outside of the box because of years in the business and another piece of paper. So they just used to grab me and pull me out the calculation, all right? And I didn't have any problems with that either. But that just slipped my mind, you know, since I've been around with my colleagues. Some of you still were my colleagues. But we made pretty good salary. You know, before I left the district, I was making $100 grand. That's a long time ago. Smallest school in the district.
Top heavy.
So, I mean, hey, I just put that out there so they could buzz his ear. So much for that.
So any questions so far on the mandated increases and then the ones that we have calculated for you to see tonight?
By the way, he's in the box too now, okay? Mr. Price is in the box too now.
He's in the box?
The box I just spoke about, just remember all of them are in the box, including him now. So he's not trying to squirm his way out of this thing. Go ahead.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
The mandated, is the mandated fixed right now? Will it change
It could change.
after?
Yes, ma'am. The House has a different version. It may include more funding, but a bigger raise for teachers.
Okay.
So until we know for sure, the Senate version was the latest one to come out, and we thought that that's the most conservative one. We'll go with that for now. If we need to, we'll come back.
When do you anticipate them getting?
I wish I knew. I don't think they're even going to meet until after the primaries. So June the 15th, 16th, I think is when,
Pretty late.
you know, I mean, they're
Pretty late.
pretty late, yes, ma'am, especially when you have to have a budget in place July 1st.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to give you some options on how to fund what we're bringing to you tonight, not just the mandated and the proposed salary and fringe increases that we've given you, but also since the first of the year, you've had many schools and departments coming to you and making requests. So that next to the last line that says additional budget requests from departments and schools, that's what that is. That would be $2.8 million if it was fully funded. And that would leave us $3.1 million over budget if all of those things are funded. So, overview of the mill, the value and the cost of a mill. The current projected value of an operating mill, and that is totally separate from our debt service. They're two things. The debt service fund can only buy certain things. It can't pay teacher salaries. It can't pay cost of the utilities and things to run the schools. So this is the operating mill. The projected value for this year is $375,524. I've not built growth into it for next year yet because I'm not really sure what that might look like. And this again, this is not your primary home. This is second homes, businesses, rentals, those type properties. So our current operating millage rate is 115.6 mills. The cost of a mill to the taxpayer is $6 per $100,000 of assessed value on your property tax bill. And again, not your primary home. The last time that we increased our operating millage was for fiscal year 1920. It was tax year 2019. We actually increased 3.4 mills that were allowed that current year, and then we did the look back. There's a look back provision. You can go back 3 years. If you haven't used those mills that were available, then you can pick them up. So at that time, we did use some of those, and we added 5.9 mills to 109.7, and that's how we got to 115.6. And this is doing the same thing. We did use the 1920 millage, so that's not available, but the 2021, 21, 22, and 22, 23 mills are available. The cap is set by the Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office. That comes to us, and it's set, unless you have one of the exceptions, which we don't. It's, the percentage of increase is based on the CPI and the county population growth. So you can see what each year's millage would have been allowed, how much millage increase would have been allowed, and today what that might bring in as far as revenue. So if you decided to raise the millage by 1 mill, we could cover the mandated and requested increases that we gave you in the first document. And we'd have $36,000 left over approximately. So that's one option. That's option 1. Option 2, if you go up by 2.3 mills, then this is where the departmental budget request and school request are going to come in. We could fund number 1, option 1, and then we could fund these items with the other part of the 2.3 mills. And that would be for special education teachers, 3, maintenance stipends based on certification, and these are all things that are probably sounding familiar from the budget presentations. The rural schools retention bonus, signing bonus for senior interns, additional days for custodians, stipends for the CTSO advisors, student council advisor stipends, the 4 JAG positions, which are teachers or in teaching positions, and the athletic stipend increase, which is a step increase every 4 years for coaching experience.
I have a question there. The 3 special needs teachers, I thought those were almost mandates, because weren't those things that we would be out of compliance should we not do? And if they are, then how can they, I don't want them to be in an option. I can't see how that's not an optional item.
Yes, ma'am. I know. And the numbers are, the student numbers have fluctuated so much. It's been really hard to predict what we think we'll have next year. So I'm not sure. I guess we wouldn't fill them if we didn't need them. But you're right. I mean, basically, they're pretty much a have to.
I just thought when we talked about it that we said those.
So I can move those into the mandated.
I just think those are mandated. If the numbers that we saw when we saw the presentation are true numbers, and they are, then I certainly don't see. And waiting longer to find those people seems to me to be a real problem.
Any other questions on option 2? Option 3 would be to increase mills by 4.1 mills. And then we'd cover option 1, option 2. Then we'd also be able to, the ones that have been on the board the longest will remember that we are a step behind for our teachers from back when the economy tanked before. So a catch-up year just for teachers and just for current teachers, just for the ones that are on board at the time this happens, would get them as if we had not lost that step. We've also had the request for the ESOL instructional coach slash teacher. I think the request was coach, but we are asking that it be split with teaching children and assisting with the administration, so 50-50.
So would that take care of the 5th or 6th position in ESOL, or is this another additional teacher in ESOL?
This is,
It was to accommodate both requests. There was a request for an additional teacher and a request for an overall instructional coach for ESOL teachers. And so the compromise here is to have someone who would work with those other teaching positions, but also have a student load as well, but not as large as a full-time ESOL teacher. So part of their time would be spent working with students, the others would be spent working with the ESOL teachers.
Kind of like a teacher leader stipend
Yes,
kind
ma'am.
of situation. But that would give us another ESOL teacher,
Correct,
so that'd be another teaching position.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
then option 4, we could increase by 6.4 mils, and we can cover option 1, 2, and 3. The elementary schools asked for STEM teachers at all the schools, so there would be 10. That would be covered, and then the Andrews High School chorus / theater teacher would be covered with option 4. And if we went with option 5, it's 8.4 mils. The additional revenue would be 3.2, and it would cover options 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then it would also give the middle schools a CTE exploratory PLTW position, a middle-level Spanish position, which they all ask for, plagiarism detection software for the middle and high, and an athletic director stipend of $500 per sport for each of the athletic directors at those high schools.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes, sir.
I would like to make a comment, please.
Okay.
Under the option 3, I would just like to make a statement with the catch-up year for teacher step. I'd love to see that moved up in our priorities, because I think that's important with our teacher retention in Georgetown County.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So those are the options that we're going to ask you to consider. The last slide before the questions is the items that were requested, so we wanted you to see them, and then how we're trying to address them. We've covered them either by reallocating other positions, or they're in ESSER, they've been in ESSER, we're going to keep them in ESSER until next year when we build our budget and we have to figure out how we're going to fund the different items. So those are covered, will be taken care of, but just not through the options 1 through 5.
And this is not the extra money we're going to have at the end of the year. These are not the that was my question before. These are not the questions in that $800,000.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
So proposed for that money, where would we go with that? That go to fund balance, or does that cover some things we might
these items
change around?
You're talking about these items?
I'm talking about this extra money that we have at the end of the year.
I think if you go back and look, it's actually included in the money available.
Right.
For moving forward.
800,000.
So we've already included
Yes.
that in our budget.
Yeah, I believe
when we
that's back on
did
one of
the
the-
initial money for this year. That was my question.
Yes, ma'am.
And if these things were part of that, so I do now understand.
That's it there up on the screen now.
Right.
You'll see where those available.
And
revenues
actually,
are.
with the new money and the 800,000, we are able to cover the mandated salaries and benefits right now. Now, that doesn't include the changes that we've made tonight, but
Right. do we have any leeway at all in the first presentation of money for where we are with number of positions and things we've already obligated for, like these things that we might want to move, like the teacher step, like some of those kind of things? Do we have any leeway before we do options?
Not that I know of. Now, the House version has added some additional funding. The question is, though, the teacher raise goes up as well, so we'd have to know how that was going to be given to us to know if we'd be able to cover another $1,000 or another $2,000 raise to the teachers. So it's, right now, we don't feel like there's much leeway. But we're going to be constantly looking at it from now to June 7th and hopefully have some more definite numbers for you.
You can find lots of money before then.
Yes, ma'am, that tree in the back is not doing well.
That hadn't grown very well. All right.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
At some point, Georgetown County's millage rate was one of the lowest, if not the lowest in the state. And I'm wondering, where we fall with the present one, and if we go up some, maybe where would we be?
I can get some more information for you. I know we still are one of the lowest, basically because we have some valuable properties that are assessed at a high rate. So, especially with the Waccamaw Neck properties. So I can do some research for you though and bring that back.
That'd be fine.
Okay.
Ms. Johnson, you mentioned a lot of things in these 3-4 options, and you didn't, name anything specifically as far as where they'll be designated. Is any of this fund going to be designated towards some of the upgrade that this young lady spoke about with the Howard Center, as far as getting them more structured over there? And maybe
I know
that's
there's
a
some
question for the
presentations
superintendent.
tonight that
Yes, sir. We have a presentation coming up later this evening that's going to talk about planning for the Howard Alternative Program.
Yes.
And how resources and positions are going to be repurposed and utilized. And so there's no, we're using existing resources to provide more support moving forward. And so if after you hear that presentation, there's something more that the board would like to be considered, then we would certainly want to entertain that before we finalize a budget.
Okay, thanks.
I'd like to see Ms. Johnson's question about the millage. To kind of follow up with that, I would like to see school districts our size, with our student population, what their budgets look like, their bottom line budget, not just the millage, because like you said, you mentioned the Waccamaw Neck. Isn't that right, Ms. Johnson?
Yes, sir.
Those places that are on the ocean front there and all, they're very valuable properties, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some of these places, and I'm not trying to downplay anybody, but like Barnwell and places like that, they don't have beach property. Abbeville, places like that, they don't have it. So millage rate is one thing, but I'd like to see, with their student population, what that budget looks like, that bottom line budget.
So their total general fund budget is what you're looking for?
Yes, ma'am. And perhaps at the next meeting, you can show
Sure.
us. Thank you.
Can do that. So again, this is subject to change so much between now and we'll make the changes that you all have talked about tonight. We'll try to get something ready for you on June the 7th. If our goal is to adopt a budget at the end of June. It may not be the final budget. We may have to come back and ask you to amend it. But we'd like to start out the year with a budget. And to do that, we'll really need some direction and some decisions, I guess, without a vote next week, just some input from you all as to which way we should try to go, because we have a 15-day advertising period, that from when we get to that point, I've got 15 days to advertise the public hearing, any millage increase, as well as the total budget compared to the prior year. So I know it's short notice, and I know it's a lot to take in, and we've wrestled with, the state has a continuing resolution out there. I don't know if they'll take advantage of it or not, but we've been through that once. And this is the second time it's ever been introduced. So there's just so many questions from Columbia as to which direction they're going to go.
And this is just the first presentation. The budget is probably going to be a standing agenda item as we move forward. We've been taking notes on suggestions and thoughts that have been shared by everyone, looking at pay scales for one of the items that we've targeted, looking at moving some orders around for a couple of other items. So we will continue to make these tweaks and adjustments and bring back to you for your preview. And then ultimately, it's, if we're going to do more than our new funds require, that would result in the need to raise millage, and that would be something that the board would need to consider and take a vote on before moving forward. So we wanted to just kind of give you a picture of, based on all the requests and the needs that have been presented, what that looks like dollar-wise, what we have access to, and what we would need more action on in order to capitalize on those things. So we will keep your feedback, keep notes on the feedback, and keep bringing revised presentations based on your feedback. So if you have any other thoughts or ideas between now and the next meeting, feel free to share those, and we'll have them in the form of a presentation, an updated presentation, the next time we come together.
And if you have any questions in the meantime, please call. I'm happy to go through it with you, talk about it, tell you how we came up with what we've come up with.
This is an enormous task, and I appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And a special thanks to Ms. Johnson and her team, because I asked them to present it in a completely different way this year because of all the requests, because of the uncertainty of the budget being tossed back and forth between the Senate and the House, and also to see what it looks like in dollars, what we have access to and what we don't. So you all heard all the presentations that were made by principals and by district leaders, and there's a lot of merit in the things that are being asked. But everything comes with a cost, and so it's just important to let you know that although those are good ideas, there's a cost attached, and so this is the first visual of what that looks like, and we'll keep bringing you updated presentations.
I think our state legislators ought to know that you can't, like a family, you can't plan a budget without a bottom line. And I think it's I just think it's unconscionable to think that they think a district can know where they're going if they don't give us exactly what it's going to look like come our next fiscal year. So I appreciate the hard work and putting it together and letting us look at the things that we see to move forward.
Certainly, thank you.
In addition to that, I think that it's nice to see that you all are aligned with your priorities to what the legislature is identifying as their priority, and that's employee pay. And that's something that's real to everyone. Every classification of employee, we are competing with other districts in the nearby area with those salaries and with those pay amounts. And that's why, as Dr. Milton mentioned, we are constantly doing comparisons to make sure we are in the ballpark, but also trying to work to get ahead if we can so that we can remain competitive. I don't think it's a surprise that there are a lot of help wanted signs in a lot of different businesses right now, and education is no different. And all of our employees work incredibly hard. And when I say all, I mean all. And they are all essential to the successful operations of our school district. So seeing that your priority is aligned with the state's, I think, is refreshing. Otherwise, we would be chasing two different targets right now. So it is nice to see that both are aligned. So thank you for your support and your guidance with this, and we'll continue to keep you updated.
Mr. Mark Frechette is going to come up and go through the district's enrollment for the 21-22 actual 135-day and talk about some of the changes. And then he's also going to talk about the projected numbers for 22-23 based on what we know today. And he'll be glad to answer any questions for you.
Good evening, Chairman Dr. Lance, Superintendent Price, board members, cabinet, and distinguished guests. Again, this evening I would like to present to you just an overview of our 135-day counts, as well as those projected enrollments for the 2022-23 school year. During this presentation, you'll notice that we will have slides containing tables of each of the 4 attendance zones throughout Georgetown County School District with Andrews, Carvers Bay, Georgetown, and Waccamaw. As we look at this first table from the left to the right, you'll notice up at the top the 22-23 projected. This is a representation of the projected total student enrollment. So essentially a roll-up of the current grade levels into next year's grade level. So if a 4th grade class at a school currently had 100 students enrolled, then we're projecting that next year's 5th grade class would have 100 students enrolled. In these counts, we did take into consideration any graduating juniors, and they were removed from those 12th grade counts. And additionally, basically, unlike any other grade, our kindergarten counts, we used this year's 135-day counts and just duplicated that for the projection for those kindergarten classes. The other columns there, the 2021-22 actual and the 2020-21 actual, that's a mouthful to say. Those basically are our student counts taken on the 135th day from each of those school years. The next columns are the enrollment changes, the 2023 versus 22, and the 22 versus 2021. These numbers are essentially a comparison showing the increase or decrease in enrollment from the previous year. And again, these are broken down by school. So looking at this first table, you can see that from 2021 to 22, we did have an overall drop in enrollment in the Andrews area of 56 students. Based on the projections, it does appear that we are anticipating a decrease of 2 students overall in this area, and which that means that from 2021 to 23, there's an overall decrease of 58 students projected for the area. In the Carvers Bay area, again, there was a drop in enrollment from 21 to 22. For this area was 27 total students. Based on the projections, again, it appears that we're anticipating a decrease of 13 students, which would mean from 2021 to 23, we're projecting a total decline of enrollment of 40 students overall. In the Georgetown area schools, Georgetown area was hit especially hard between 21 and 22. However, we can pause for a moment and take a look at that number, the anticipated increase of 48 students. That is a highlight there. And again, from 21 to 23, there was a total loss anticipated of 53 students. In the Waccamaw area schools, they were the lone area to increase enrollment from the 21 to 22 school year. However, based on our projections, it does appear that we are anticipating a decrease of 52 students from this year to next in the area. Again, from the 2021 to the 23 school year, we were projecting a total decline of enrollment of 31 students. And last, we have the Coastal Montessori Charter School. They have reported that they're expecting 249 students for the 22-23 school year, and that's based off of their current enrollment and pre-registration paperwork that they have received. So that would mean an overall increase of 18 students from 2021 through 2023. Looking at our area totals, the 2022-23 projections show an increase of 19 students overall. And We can also see that there is, again, an overall decrease in student enrollment from 2021 to 23, projected at 164 students. Again, hopefully, overall, seeing that total increase of 19 students overall for 22 to 23, that's a trend that we would like to see continue in this district. And as I wrap up my part of tonight's presentation, just kind of on a bright spot, we are currently, we have more students enrolled than we did at this point last year for registration for next year. And again, this is a testament to the clerks, the schools, and the district have done a great job of continuing their communication, their support, and their encouragement with families throughout their registration process. Additionally, our families have done an incredible job with the online portion of that enrollment. So we expect these numbers to continue to increase before the end of the year, and we're going to continue to support the Georgetown County School Districts and families to remind them that we do want you back.
Questions for Mark? I'm going to take over from here. You good? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And this is a screen that you all have seen a couple times in some ESSER funding reviews. Just wanted to finalize our 21-22 numbers for you. It's the enrollment of 8,012. The district formula for teachers would be for 397 teachers. Actually, we had at the end of on the 135th day, we have 413 local teachers. So we're 16 over. We had 16 in Title I this year, 1 in Title II, and then we had our ESSER extra teaching positions, 11, and the interventionists and reading coaches that are funded in ESSER right now.
Lisa, so we are at Johnson, we're actually 27 teachers. Am I correct? Over in our, from allocations with ESSER, that includes the 4 that we approved for or have asked for in middle schools.
Yes, ma'am, it does include them.
But we're 27 teachers over formula, is that correct?
We are on the 135th day.
Okay.
So, and the next slide, I'll take you through each area using the teacher allocations, and you can see which schools, where we have the overages, and I'll go through each one with you. The thing that really got us this year is Title I, because our numbers are already so low, we are not able to have all of our reduced class size teachers back. So you'll see that Andrews Elementary, their allocation calls for 31 local. Right now, they've got 35. So they're over 4 local teachers. They've got 2 Title I positions that are going to have to be absorbed, and there's nowhere else to absorb them but local or ESSER. Then they have the extra ESSER teachers. Andrews doesn't have any. Then you've got the 2 interventionists, which we all know those are in there for this coming year, and then we're going to have to figure out what to do from there. So the total overage of instructional teachers is 8, but because of attrition and movement, we've recouped 4. So she's still 4 over. The school is still 4 over. Does that make sense? And Andrews High, it should have 32, they have 33, so they're 1 over. So we did not take a teacher from them this year. Rosemary is okay. We didn't do anything with them. Sampit, she's over 2, but she's got a Title I position as well that she can't have for reduced class size. And she's also got her interventionist, so she's 4 over, or the school's 4 over, and then we've recouped 2 of those. So for the Andrews area, they're 16 over, and we've recouped 6. And the Carvers Bay, same thing. Browns Ferry, we reduced by 1. Carvers Bay High, his is okay, his is the same. Carvers Bay Middle is the same. So they're 2 over, Plantersville is the next screen. And this one is over, but we know that you have to have a teacher per grade level. So at Pleasant Hill Elementary, he is 7 over, 5 over rather, and he is losing, he's recouped 2 of those. He's still 3 over. So for that area, we're over by 13.7, and we've reduced that by 3. So we're 10.7 over in that area. Georgetown. Georgetown High is over 2 local, and we've reduced his overage by 1 position. Georgetown Middle, we've reduced his by 1, and Kensington, that one's by 1 as well. And then Maryville 1 and McDonald 1. So with 16 over for those area schools, we've recouped 5 positions. In Waccamaw. Waccamaw Elementary, actually, we're going to move one of those teachers for Waccamaw Elementary back out of Esser to local because that enrollment's gotten better. So we're going to move that back to local. So that, so I think we're good there. Waccamaw High, we didn't take anything. Waccamaw Intermediate is 3 over, and we took 1. And Waccamaw Middle is 3 over, and we didn't take any. We're actually going to move teachers out of that ESSER funded money into local because we owe them teachers too. So overall, there were 9, and we got 1 back. And then this gives you the district, the overall picture. We're over 54.7. We've now identified 15 that we've recouped. And then on the next slide, we'll show you there's the 54.7, and now we're 39.7, and continuing to work on reducing those numbers. Any questions?
Just a comment. I'm really concerned about numbers like 60 in a school, and where we're having to have so many teachers over. I'd like for us to look at our per pupil expenditures for each of our schools. Could you share that with us so that we would know per school our pupil expenditures?
Yes, ma'am. I can get that.
I surely would appreciate that.
Anything
It
else?
shouldn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. That was one of the most asked questions I had as an administrator at Plantersville Elementary School. I got hit with that rocket every year. So I got to the point I just told them to do it. And I'm not going to finish that sentence, because I was an administrator, but I told them to do it. But that tag in the forest has been around for a while, all right? He might be the one who captured it, I don't know. But I can tell you this, Taggart is smarter than most people, all right? Interesting comment, that's all. We've been around the same time. We had some great battles.
Well, it is interesting, though, when you, for instance, if you're looking at an administrator who has 1,000 students, and let's round it off, let's say they're making $100,000. And then you got an administrator who's got 70 students, and they're making $100,000. You know, where's the equity in that? That's not a specific question.
Anything else from tonight? I know it's a lot of information to throw at you one time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Lance, board members, Mr. Price, and guests. A few months ago, or a couple of months ago, probably not that long, Ms. Rosemary Gray and Ms. Tyler Easterlin presented the Coastal Montessori Charter for your approval. And at that time, there was a question about some of the wording in the charter, specifically on page 6 and letter D, which is in front of you and on the screen for our audience. In doing our due diligence, we actually went back and looked at the verbiage, and we decided that it needed to be changed. So we're presenting that to you on tonight. The highlighted portion in the top part of, for those of you who can't see, says a performance framework. And when we talked about it that night, we talked about the Montessori curriculum as being the performance framework. But after further discussion and investigation, we realized that that needed to be changed, because even though the Montessori curriculum is their curriculum, they are still tested or administered the same tests as our students take in our traditional schools. So we wanted to change that verbiage, which is on the lower part in the recommendation, to align with the students being assessed the same way that our students are assessed in our traditional schools. So that is for your information this evening, and we'll be coming back for a vote on that at the next meeting. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Cohen and Ms. Gray. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gaskins. Thank you.
I would, the presentation, Dr. Paula.
Chairman Dr. Lance, board members, Superintendent Price, cabinet members, district administration, and guests, good evening. I initially gave you a dissertation, but I since cut it down to a thesis, Dr. Lance. So I've given you a shorter version of what I will be presenting to you on this evening. The services that we offer at the Adult Ed is GED, high school diploma, ESL, basic literacy, and workplace literacy. We have our faculty and staff as listed, and the roles of each of the faculty members. What you see is a plethora of roles that each of our instructors have, and some of the roles are duplicated. However, we cross-train so that we can fill in at any given time as we accept students all throughout the day. They come in and register and have orientation every day, Monday through Fridays. So therefore, we all are cross-trained so that we can participate with the intake and the registration process as well. Because those students work full-time jobs, part-time jobs, they don't have babysitters, they have all extenuating circumstances that we deal with. And if they ask us to work with them via Zoom, whatever the instance may be, we do so. I even took the liberty of working with one this past weekend on a Saturday evening via Zoom, so I don't exclude myself from the group as well. So we all have huge responsibilities, as well as our staff and the LACES specialists. They all partake in the registration and the intake process as well as the other assigned duties that they may have. Our recruitment, as you can see, those are the various ways that we recruit, but the most effective way is word of mouth and the various flyers that we send to the community churches, as well as home visits and Facebook. These are our collaborative partners that we partner with. They send us referrals, and I actually go into some of the entities and speak with the clients that are there and share with them what we offer at the Georgetown County Adult Education. These are the programs that we have. The Adult Ed, where it has 13, those are from our referrals that came from our partners. We have 106 high school diploma students currently. The GED students, 74. ESL, there are 25. And the basic skills students, there are 8 of them. Our current enrollment, we have 226 students who are currently enrolled. 180 of them are still fundable. And for them to be fundable, that means that they have to have 12 hours and a pre-assessment. And we currently have 180 of those. 46, well, that number has increased because we have had more graduates as of today. And as of today, we have 19 GED graduates and 27 high school diploma graduates. We set a goal for ourselves at the beginning of the year to at least have 50 graduates, and we will exceed that goal by next Thursday. Thank you so much.
Dr. Anderson, I have 2 questions.
Dr. Anderson.
Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody?
The Gaskins.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, hey there.
Hi.
Great presentation. 2 questions, both unrelated. I would love to see, how your numbers compared to the years past. I just wonder has there been a change in enrollment during COVID? And I'd love to see some of the data there. If you could provide that from the last 2 or 3 years.
From last year, we have had an increased enrollment, but I will get the specific data for you and get it to you at a later date.
The other question relates to Andrews. I know many years ago, we helped build Georgetown County School District built a room onto the library there. And is there any plans? I know that room hadn't been used in several years, or is it being used now in Andrews?
It was not used this year, but our plans for next year is to reopen that center.
Awesome. I know there were some great tutors over in the Andrews area that was volunteering, I think, over there with that center.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Brian Clark, our alternative overview. That's the tiger in the county.
Yeah, I think so.
Good afternoon, Chairman Dunn. Chairman Dunn. I am nervous. Chairman Dr. Gadsden.
Make it nice and easy.
I know it. I'm sorry, sir.
You've been around.
Dr. Gadsden.
Chairman Dr. Gadsden. Board members, Mr. Price. Good evening.
You all right, man?
Dr. Lance. Mr. Price. I told you the other day I was nervous in here. Howard Alternative, planning ahead. Stick to the script. Alternative education is a setting where learning is focused on the individual needs of students, while at the same time students work with the RBHS counselor to improve behaviors that have distracted them from learning in their traditional setting. What is the goal of Howard Alternative? To help students reflect, learn, and grow while they're at Howard and then transition successfully back to their home school. Instructional program, a hybrid model. While at Howard, students looking forward ahead to next year will be placed in a cohort of either A or B days. The Howard calendar would consist of A days and B days. Students in cohort A would attend school on A days, and students in cohort B would attend on B days. During the days off, or the days they weren't at school, they would complete their assignments using an online instructional content, and they would be marked present virtually as they logged on, just like they would if they were during the pandemic. The hybrid model will reduce the number of students in class daily and will allow for students who may have been involved in a mutual altercation to be assigned different cohorts. Instructional program for teachers. Currently, the high school students assigned to Howard Alternative have teachers from Howard Adult who teach core subjects and assist students with their online curriculum. Beginning in 22-23, teachers from Howard Adult will also work with the middle school students at Howard Alternative. Counseling. Currently, there is a counselor who spends half time of her day at adult ed focusing on career readiness, and the other half of her time is spent at Georgetown Middle School assisting with individual graduation plans. Beginning next year, this counselor will spend half of her time at Howard Adult and the other half of her time with Howard Alternative. Students in Howard Alternative will have a rotation with the counselor similar to those that have special area. The counselor will then be able to work with the students on problem solving, reflection, counseling, and planning for their success. The counselor will engage students in individual, small group, or whole class counseling. Counseling also comes into play with alternative behavior education, or ABE interventions that are available through scholarship. This will become a part of the students' daily rotation to help them make different and better choices in the future. We are planning to identify and engage with mentors who could assist students while they're at Howard Alternative. Also, an RBHS counselor who is currently at Howard serves students who qualify or have been referred, and this will continue, hopefully in greater magnitude as the need arises in the coming school year. Additional support. Earlier this year, Georgetown County School District received funding from South Carolina to employ school resource officers in every school except Howard, which didn't qualify because we don't have a full-time schedule of students. Prior to this, Georgetown County had paid off-duty officers to work in schools who didn't have an assigned SRO. The off-duty officers will no longer be needed because using the funds that we were allocated for the officers, we've created an administrative monitor position that will assist with classroom interventions and response, supervision, duty, management, and safety. And this position will give us more flexibility than the SRO position. That position was interviewed for today, and I understand that the candidate has accepted the job and plans to begin work May 25th. And so it will be in place prior to the end of this current school year. Orientation sessions. When students are referred to Howard Alternative, they and their parent or guardian will attend orientations before classes begin. The orientation will cover the schedule, the rules and consequences, the expectations, and supports that are going to be in place for their success. The orientation will also cover the minimum length of stay and the conditions that must be met for a student to transition back to their home school. High expectations are going to be maintained. Students will have high expectations while at Howard Alternative. These expectations must be met in order for the student to transition back to their home school. When a student is assigned Howard Alternative, they will be there now for a minimum of 45 days or a 9-week grading period. In order to earn the transition back to their home school, the student must be in good standing academically, in good standing with their behavior, and in good standing with their attendance. Failure to meet these expectations will result in an extended stay at Howard Alternative. So what is good standing? Academically speaking, passing all their classes while at Howard. Passing on the current grading scale is a 60. Behavior. No more than 1 out-of-school suspension while they're at Howard. 3 suspendable offenses or 1 expellable offense will result in a recommendation for expulsion from Howard. Attendance. No more than 3 unexcused absences. Failure to meet any of these criteria will result in a student's stay being extended for an additional 15 days. Again, what is the goal of Howard Alternative? To help students reflect, learn, and grow while they're at Howard and then transition successfully back to their home school. We feel that by setting high expectations for our students and providing additional supports, students will not only experience more success while at Howard, but will at their home school once they return.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
The attendance,
Yes.
which I work with foster children, and I know attendance is a problem. Once they miss those 3 days, then what happens?
They'll be informed that their stay at Howard is going to be extended because
Will they be able to stay out 3 weeks and then come back?
I guess we couldn't stop them from staying out, but no, ideally they want their ideal situation would be that they want to go back to their home schools.
Yeah, I didn't hear could you repeat your question, Ms.
What happens
Dillon?
is, because I have a young student that missed a week, and then she went back 3 weeks later and continued on with her class. She just took 3 weeks off. I mean, I went to see her every week, so I know that's what she did, and took 3 weeks off and was able, and this was 2 years ago, but was able to go back. And so as far as I'm concerned, there really wasn't any consequences for her taking the week off.
And I can answer a little bit of that. One of the things that we've added this year is a truancy officer to help keep a closer eye on attendance concerns. We also have a social worker who is, that we've hired this year as well, that also helps with truancy matters. And there are attendance contracts that can be put in place. In this proposal, if a student has excessive absences, then all of those things are still in play. An attendance contract could still be employed. Referral for truancy could still happen. These are for unexcused absences. Of course, if excused, that's a different story. But then if they have more than the allowable amount of unexcused absences, therefore they would not be in good standing. So their time would be extended by 15 days. So that would be a consequence in addition to the attendance contracts or referral for truancy if it's severe.
Thank you.
And I've been working very closely with David Almonte in the truancy piece this year.
Okay, excuse me, Mr. Clark, two
Mr.
things.
Walker, yes, sir.
2 things. Orientation, is this how we currently doing it, what you just read there just
Yes.
now? Is that what we currently
Yes, that
doing?
currently takes place.
Okay.
It was a bit hairy as we began the year because I was trying to get my schedule down, but yes, the orientation sessions have been held, are held, and these expectations are made.
Okay, the next thing is a hybrid. Is that something you're presenting for next year, or?
That is the plan that I would like to move forward with, yes. So, because, for example, when we have the mutual students in a mutual combat situation in a fight.
I understand that, but, you know, during the pandemic, we were forced into hybrid because we didn't want to have everybody together. But I'm not a fan of kids being able to stay home a couple of days a week. I just don't think they get the structure that they need. That's just my opinion, but thank
Yes,
you
sir.
for letting me know what you were asking for. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Clark,
Yes, sir, Mr. Gaskins.
I think you've answered this, but with the orientation with the parent will take place before the child actually starts. Is that correct?
Yes, enrollment paperwork is completed, and the orientation session is held so that the parent and the students understand what is expected of them when they come.
Okay.
Dr. Cafaro.
Sir, it was said earlier that you are the hearing officer for the district.
Yes, sir.
Is that going to continue next year too?
Yes, sir, as far as I understand.
And you're able to, where do you have the hearings? At Howard?
At Howard.
So if I need somebody to assist me, I'm a teacher, and I guess I would look for you, wouldn't I? If outside the classroom?
Yes, sir.
And you're in a hearing?
Yes, sir. So we have an administrative monitor that is being placed at Howard, the new hire, and that person is going to assist me with the administration day to day. And also, as we've been doing this year, Dr. Anderson and I have been covering for each other upstairs and down. So there's been coverage provided.
Okay, well, in my humble opinion, I think that might need to looked into, because I don't see that as really a good mix. You know, I look at you as the administrator of the school.
Yes, sir.
And again, this is not an attack on you.
Understand.
I just think that you shouldn't have those dual roles, okay? That's number one. And then secondly, suppose me and Ms. Hamill got into a big fight. I mean, we've been fighting since kindergarten, okay? And then we get sent to Howard. Are we going to be placed in the same classroom if we're in the same grade? Well, let's say we're both in hypothetically, the 7th grade. Are we going to be placed in the same classroom?
Well, if we have the hybrid model for attendance in cohorts A and cohorts B, then no, I would be able to assign one a B day and one an A day, and we wouldn't have that problem.
Okay, that's if, right? If, the hybrid.
Right.
Okay, all right. But hypothetically speaking, let's put the hybrid to the side. Would it be possible, I mean, would you even consider, or somebody consider us being mortal enemies, being placed in the same class at an alternative school?
Okay, so let's say you both go to what school, Georgetown Middle?
Any school.
Okay, so who's going to move? Because when you're done with your alternative education at Howard, you're going to go back to your home school and be in the same grade and either get along or continue to fight like you have since kindergarten.
Yeah, and see, you're making my point, because I think, and I could be wrong, I think that actually went on at Howard, right? Where you had some hostile people in the same classroom. I see people nodding their heads.
Yes,
I don't
sir.
know if they're doing it just to mimic me or what, but anyway.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's a, you know, that's a terrible mix, I would think, you know, to put them in there. And then also, let me ask you this, the contract, and I understand these are not, and this is not a put down, I understand these are students with issues, but suppose I consistently refer to my teacher with really bad words. I mean, really bad words. What happens there? I mean, I consistently, when you get me mad, I'm going to call you. I grew up in a farm community. I taught in a farm community, called it Massey Ferguson. But if you use those languages like that, MF over and over again. What's been the practice?
There's going to have to come a time when the community in Georgetown County understands that students are going to have to be held accountable, and they're going to have to be expelled from school until they realize that going to school is a right and a privilege, but that if they cannot behave and adhere by the rules in which the district board, your board has adopted and provides for them, then they've exercised their right not to participate.
Because you want to help students, right?
That's
you want
correct.
to give them a chance, but when they do things excessively.
That's right.
And consistently.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
It's time to make an example out of some of them, and then maybe that won't happen. I hate to say that, but that's the bare bones, because all students have a right to a public education, but they have a right also to not interfere with other people's rights to receive their education or be the teacher that teaches the students.
And I know the teachers will, as the expression goes, bend over backwards to help the students. I understand that. But, you know, you reach a point where that type of behavior, I mean,
Yes,
you
sir.
have to draw the line somewhere.
Understood.
Okay, thank you. I
That's
appreciate
correct.
that, Mr. Clark. Thank you.
Well,
Yes, Dr. Lance.
oh, I got my name.
Dr. Lance, yes, sir.
We're good. You know, he brought that up, but that pretty much always set on my head because I felt for you. And in my mind, you're over there dealing with the baddies all day long. Then you have to turn around and play God compassionate as sort of like the mediator in that second job you have. I mean, do you ever run across those same kids again?
Oh, yes, sir.
On second job?
Yes, sir.
How can you manage? I'm not like him. And listen,
I think correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Lance, but I think what he's
it's not even
asking
impossible for him
is
to
that
handle both of those. All right, it's too much on him.
if you have a student who commits an infraction so severe that it results at a recommendation for expulsion at Howard, and you were the one that recommended that, do you then turn around and be the hearing officer for that?
No, sir. No, sir.
That's
No,
what he's
sir.
asking.
No, if I am as the director at Howard, the principal of Howard, alternative, if a student violates the rules and is recommended, then Dr. Hamill has heard those hearings this year for me. So he hears those. I mean, in his absence, I guess Dr. Giles would, or somebody else may, but yes, sir. I don't hear my own cases.
But in the situation you are right now, you are comfortable dealing in the double role?
I have been, yes, sir. I have been.
Because personally, I couldn't do it.
The hardship falls on the times of day, and I only schedule hearings during an hour and a half in the morning and about 2 hours in the afternoons on the days that they're held.
Okay.
So I don't interfere with my bus duty, my lunch duty, or my dismissal at the end of the day. And the only time that is really an issue is when student misbehaviors in the classroom are so severe that they need somebody in place. And then in my absence, Dr. Anderson has stepped in many times, and this new administrative monitor is going to be another person that can help step in just those small periods of time. It's not a lot of time, it's just a small period of time that those hearings are being held.
What will that monitor, what will this person be able to do?
This person will
Going to have some kind of authority?
I'm hoping that he will.
Or just mouth?
No, sir.
Kids will slap him until they get
I don't believe they'll slap this one. No, sir.
I didn't want to go there, but that's what I had in my mind, and I'll kind of leave that alone. All right. Do you have
I believe the person that we have for the job is going to be one that's going to work out for us.
I had a few over there who didn't have degrees who would do the job quite well. All right. I
Any other
pray for
questions?
you every night, man. Pray for you all the time.
All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Price.
Good evening, Chairman Lance, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Tonight, I, along with our 5 principals from the Carvers Bay area schools, will present an overview of the magnet application that we submitted last month. We should hear something in September about the status of our application. If approved, we would plan to launch these programs in the 23-24 school year. With all of the work that we've been doing over the past 2 years, along with the goals of our strategic plan that guided us this year, Pathways to Success was a fitting name for our program, as our spoken goal has been to prepare every student for success in their chosen pathway. The Magnet Schools Assistance Program provides grants to eligible local education agencies to establish and operate magnet schools that are operated under a court-ordered or federally approved voluntary desegregation plan. These grants assist us in the desegregation of public schools by supporting the elimination, reduction, and prevention of minority group isolation in elementary and secondary schools with substantial numbers of minority group students. In order to meet the statutory purposes of the program, projects also must support the development and implementation of magnet schools that assist in the achievement of systemic reforms and provide all students with the opportunity to meet challenging academic content and student academic achievement standards. As you know, GCSD has been under a court-ordered desegregation plan for quite some time, and we have been making multiple efforts throughout the years to address that. This MSAP grant was created to help school districts like ours address this. In fact, we have already filed a motion with the federal court requesting permission to implement this magnet program should we be awarded the grant. The DOJ has agreed to not oppose the motion, so we should get the official vote of support and approval later this June. Last month, when you all voted to support our application, I shared that there were 4 primary goals we were aiming for with this magnet program: to increase enrollment, to decrease minority isolation, to increase academic achievement, and to decrease the opportunity gap. So why did we choose the Carvers Bay Area schools? The data helps answer that question. In looking at the 4 goals that I just mentioned, number 1, increase enrollment. The Carvers Bay Area schools have the smallest enrollment in the county and the most capacity in buildings to accommodate growth. Number 2, to decrease minority isolation. The Carvers Bay Area schools have the highest percentage of minority students in the county. Number 3, to increase academic achievement. While it's not pictured here, we have the most room for academic growth in this same area. And then finally, number 4, to decrease the opportunity gap. As you can see, the Carvers Bay area also has the highest poverty index in the county. This magnet program will help bring more opportunities to these small schools that our students otherwise might not be able to experience. What can you expect to see in magnet schools? You'll see programs that embrace diversity. We, as humans, learn from people who are different from us. We will embrace our diverse student body and their diverse life experiences and expose them to diverse learning environments. As our principals come forward in just a few moments, you will learn about some innovative theme curriculum that will be available to students by design and the professional development to help make it possible. The expectations for academic achievement will go up. Exposing students to diverse opportunities and engaged learning should be demonstrated by a variety of measures. Leadership from principals and faculty members will be critical to the program's success. And finally, the more family and community partnerships we develop, the more successful our programs and our students will be. Why consider magnet schools? In looking at the reasons for magnet schools, it gives the options to the community that's unique to the area that won't be found in other places around Georgetown County. It keeps all schools viable, and we must have the available space to offer it. And in the Carvers Bay Area schools, we have room to grow. It allows students to explore their interest based on their pathway that they are pursuing. And then finally, it aligns with the educational landscape. Our magnet is aligned with the latest research-based best practices. So each magnet school will have its own theme. There are 3 different types of models. Our elementary and middle schools will be whole school models where all students will be exposed to the theme that will be integrated into all classrooms along with a special area or elective addition designed to support the theme. The high school will be a blended whole school and school within a school model that we will dive into a little later on. We will not have any criterion-based models in this program. Criterion-based would be something like an honors academic magnet where students must have certain test scores, grades, or GPA in order to apply. While our 3 elementary magnets will be unique, you will see that we have worked to design a continuum where they can pursue their interest into middle and high school that they began in elementary. So how do we meet our goals? We scream the theme. The schools will adopt their own theme as part of their identity. Everything they do and plan will be through the lens of their magnet. We will begin recruiting and marketing these programs to attract students from other areas to consider these schools, to retain students in the areas so they don't leave to pursue options elsewhere, and then to get outside families to consider moving into this area. While the magnet grant has a few personnel additions included, the bulk of the funding will go to equipment installation, facility modifications to support the theme, and a lot of professional development to help make each program viable, effective, and successful. If approved, the funding from the grant will be available for 5 years, and our team will be working to build a sustainability plan along the way so that when the federal funds end, the magnet programs will not. As shared at a previous board meeting, the amount of the grant would be just under $15 million. There were certain components that we built into our design to make our application as strong as possible, such as utilizing a whole school model, using a lottery selection process rather than a criterion reference, and then the other goals that were mentioned earlier. There are a variety of strategies that are employed in magnet programs. You see several examples that are listed here, but there's one in particular I'd like to bring to your attention, and that's Avid. Avid is an acronym that stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. Avid is designed to challenge students by raising expectations, pushing students to begin thinking about college after high school, and equipping them with strategies to help them be successful in school now and in the future. Avid is not a program. It is a systematic collection of best practices for teaching effectively to help teachers with their pedagogy, and it also introduces best practices for students so they can be as successful as possible. Ultimately, Avid's mission is to close the opportunity gap by preparing all students for college readiness and success. Not only does this align well with the GCSD mission, but it also aligns perfectly with our Pathways to Success magnet programs. Avid will be the common thread in all schools in the Carvers Bay area from kindergarten through graduation. Avid is not new. It has been around for over 40 years, and it's now in 47 states, and it's growing. You can see that if our application is approved, this will be the first formal introduction of Avid in Georgetown County. Taking a closer look at the Avid Framework, you can see that it's built off of 4 guiding categories: leadership, instruction, systems, and culture. The professional development opportunities provided by Avid will fall into one of these 4 areas. The foundation is designed to empower educator agency that should lead to increased student agency. It's designing what educators do in order to provide what students need. It's best practices for teachers and best practices for students. The secret sauce, the ingredients of the recipe, come from an acronym called WICKER. You will find best strategies for teaching and learning in WICKER, which stands for writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading, and using these areas to empower teacher agency that should lead to increased student agency. For Avid in our elementary schools, you will find these WICKER strategies embedded in the daily teaching and learning that occurs in each classroom. This will help introduce common language and consistent expectations to help all students be successful. For the middle and high schools, you will also see these same things in all classrooms, but you will also see a new Avid Elective. The Avid Elective will work strategically with our average student who has the potential to do more rigorous work and should be encouraged to plan for college. They may be first-generation college students from their families. Students in the Avid Elective will be challenged with more rigorous classes on their schedule, but they will get the support they need to be successful in their Avid Elective class. Here's a sample week in what an Avid Elective class would look like, where it shows 2 days of Avid curriculum, which focuses a lot on organizational and study skills, and has 2 days of tutoring and support for these more rigorous courses that are on their schedule. 1 day per week is targeted for special events such as guest speakers, college tours, binder checks, and team building activities. At this time, I'm going to invite our 5 principals to come up and talk a little bit about the themes that they and their communities have selected for their part of the magnet application. So you'll get an overview from the principal, share some notes from their faculty and parent community discussions, and the experiences they have from their visits that they've taken to other magnet programs so far. So first off, I'll bring up Ms. Grant, who will share with you the plans for Browns Ferry. Ms. Grant.
Good evening. Good evening, Chairman Dr. Lance, Mr. Price, board members, and protocol has already been established. It is with great pleasure that I stand before you to share the vision and goals of Browns Ferry Elementary becoming a magnet school. Along with my faculty and staff, when we sat and discussed what our goals were, we first started to look at what our students' interests were. Sitting with the faculty and staff, we decided that the performing arts is definitely the niche at Browns Ferry. So therefore, we decided to talk about what would that name be? What would it look like? So if we are afforded this opportunity, Browns Ferry Elementary will become Browns Ferry Elementary School for the Creative and Performing Arts. Along with that, I held a State of the Ferry address, which was directed for my parents. When speaking with my parents, they felt that the performing arts was definitely the niche of their children, but they also felt that technology as well was very important because of the era that we're in. So therefore, with that, we added the creative arts. With the creative arts, that would be an infusion of art and technology into the core curriculum along with hands-on experiences. With the performing arts, we will have a special emphasis on music, theater, and dance, all infused into the core curriculum. Along with doing the work and researching schools to visit, I not only focused on schools that were just actually living the dream of a magnet school, but I had the question, what would it look like beyond the magnet school? So my visits were intertwined with schools that are currently living the dream and those students that were out of the magnet grant that also worked on sustaining. J. Paul Trulick, which is in Lake City, and Nursery Road Elementary, which is in Columbia, those students are still currently under the magnet. L.W. Condor and Howe Hall Ames, those schools are actually out of the magnet, but those principals have shared with me what it would look like, how it would look to sustain Browns Ferry Elementary School for the Creative and Performing Arts beyond the grant. So therefore, I was very intentional on the network and the visits. Next slide. The specialized coursework, we would focus on the core curriculum and make sure that the core curriculum will remain the heartbeat of the school. When it comes to how it would be infused, we will look at 9-week curricular units of dance, media arts, and music exploration to enhance student learning. The magnet will serve as the additional piece where our students have more opportunities. We do focus on the academics so often, but oftentimes we do miss out on the opportunities that our students have. So the magnet will actually suffice in that area. Some of the learning experiences that our students will have, we will have guest artists and residents where that can be dance and art. Our kids will be able to experience more art-centered field trips, such as musicals. When we visited one school, the students were actually preparing to go to the Colger Center to watch The Lion King. Browns Ferry Elementary is the only elementary school that currently has a drum line. We have been down for 2 years due to COVID. However, our students will actually be able to have this experience by going to such field trips such as Battle of the Bands to see what a true drum line looks like when they enter to college. Also, our students will be able to visit and come back to their own schools and participate in those productions as well. We will also be afforded the ability to visit colleges that actually focus on theater, dance, and music, such as Coastal Carolina, Columbia College, Winthrop, South Carolina State, and therefore. We also have a theater right here in Georgetown on Front Street, and a lot of our students have never been there. But if we're focusing on the performing arts, our students will have that opportunity to actually go and visit the theater and see some of the plays that are actually taking place there. Service learning projects, so that our kids will actually be able to go back into their community and give back. We're also looking at an iMac lab where the students will focus on coding, graphic design, and keyboarding. All of that comes under the creative arts. We're looking at a strings class for violins and guitars. Our school has already been gifted 14 violins, and with the grant, we will be afforded guitars, along with a dance studio. We were able to visit one school where they had a dance studio, and our kids do have these experiences when we have career day, and this is something that our kids actually request every year that it's career day because they love participating in dance. And we with that, I've networked with the studio right beside Radio Shack with Miss Wendy Caraway, who is the owner and director. All of this will afford our children more opportunities, and they will actually be able to see, do, and experience more. 4 years ago, when I went to Browns Ferry, I started by saying great things are happening at the Ferry. 4 years later, I am standing here before you tonight stating great things are still happening at the Ferry. Do we have any questions?
Like you did your homework.
Yes, sir.
You've got the capacity, right, at your school for this, and would there require any type of adjustments in classroom? Just like, for instance, I'm looking at the violins and the guitars, and sometimes I'll go into a music setting and they've got these, I guess, these boards on the walls and so forth.
They're currently there.
They are?
When they actually did the renovation, that was updated. And I do have empty classrooms for the dance studio. If we have an additional class, if we're afforded the actual strings classes, I have the rooms that are available for that. I've already taken inventory of the building for everything that I've requested.
Put mirrors up and all that good stuff?
Yes, sir, I have a room for the dance studio. All we're waiting on are the funds. If there are no questions, thank each and every one of you for your time. Have a great afternoon.
I can't even stand.
Good evening, Dr. Lance, distinguished board members. It's my pleasure to come before you and introduce Plansville Elementary Digital Immersion School. I will say that coming up with a theme, Mr. Price, was not an easy task because we all had our different ideas, and we wanted to make sure that we were kind of in the same mindset. But what happened was we kind of did the things that we were already doing that helped us out a whole lot come up with a theme. So what is digital immersion? Digital immersion refers to the merger of the physical world with the digital world of data. It comes in three main forms: technologies like virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, and extended reality. All of these create an altered or enhanced environment. Digital immersion is enabled by internet devices that allow scholars to live and work inside environments modified to automatically respond to the data they collect. What's that all saying? It's combining the physical world with the digital world. Things like you may already have, you see in the corner, the vacuum that's run by your phone. Also the Oculus boards. You can use devices like smartphones and tablets. Internet of Things, the way that everyday objects are connected to the internet and making them able to send and receive data. Anything can be connected, from your toothbrush, your phone, your lawnmower. These things help to lead a smarter life. Now, because we had a collaboration with CCU already, we had already begun the process of having a STEM lab with the robotics and digital focus to be part of the daily curriculum. We had several professors come and work with our faculty and staff in various areas of robotics. We have already purchased robotics, like the one in the corner, which was called the Turquoise or Dash robot. We have already begun the focus of coding and under the guidance of CCU professors, and we had some of our students doing clubs with robots and stuff like that, and our kids really, really enjoyed that. So that's how we came up with the digital immersion, because we wanted to make sure that we included things that we were already doing. Now, if we allowed the grant, it would allow us to expand and continue our efforts and provide resources to deepen our scholars' understanding of digital immersion and coding, and apply concepts of daily life while focusing on improving reading and college readiness. Learning experience. Through digital immersion, our focus is to incorporate a lab approach to learning that focuses on extending the curriculum by enhancing scholars' knowledge of state standards through hands-on learning experience. Keyboarding classes, keyboarding through second grade, learn basic operation of computers and computer skills. Third through fifth grade, develop keyboarding and writing skills, use microfilter documents and internet search games. Collaborate still with various organizations like CCU, Boeing, the Citadel. Kindergarten, computer programming class, kindergarten through fifth grade, learn coding and gaming skills. Now, the schools that I was able to visit, Newtown Elementary had an Avid focus, but the biggest one we went to was Sandlapper Elementary, located in Columbia, and they have a computer science immersion focus. And the reason why I highlight Sandlapper Elementary, because they're probably one of the leading programs in the state of South Carolina for computer science immersion focus. They have a lot of awards. So we learned a lot. One of the biggest things we learned by going there was, we talk about the achievement gap and make sure we close the achievement gap. But looking at what they were doing in their kindergarten class all the way to their fifth grade, when you had kindergarten kids that were coding and doing stuff, we also got to make sure that we close the opportunity and technology gap. And I think having this grant will allow us in the rural area to help our scholars become better, efficient with technology, especially coming up in the future for them. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Don't need a break. It's good to stand up.
Thank you, sir. Glad you see my point of view.
I'll try to wind it up a little bit. Dr. Lance, distinguished board, it is my pleasure to share with you about the, change the slide. Oh, I'm in control of the clicker. I'm sorry, I didn't know that. Pleasant Hill Elementary Stream Academy. And I'm going to be honest with you, when superintendent called us forward and challenged us to dream and dream big about our schools and the future, that was a very daunting task, and we really didn't have a clue. That's just honest. We put a lot of work to get where we are today. We wanted to do something that made sense for our students. Looking at the total picture for what we envision Carvers Bay High School, how does Pleasant Hill fit into that picture? So there were lots of, we had an open book, but we had to do what made sense. We started out with STEM, but through all this collaboration that you see here, we shared in our school leadership discussions each week, met with grade level chairs, met with our faculty, our school improvement council,
and I had a steering committee of parent representatives. And, but we really didn't have a clue about this until we visited these sites. And we went to Columbia, we went to Raleigh and visited 3 schools. Raleigh is kind of the founding place for Magnet, where there are a lot of schools there, and they're really on top of it. And we also went to Atlanta and Lake City. You see the schools that are listed here. My favorite was Lincoln Heights Environmental Connections. But all of them had something to contribute to our vision for what we arrived at. We arrived at STREAM. Now, if you look at STREAM and what does that imply? Of course, science. In our case, an emphasis on environmental science. Why environmental science? Someone asked me when I retire, what am I going to do? Farm? And I said, well, everybody at Pleasant Hill is not a farmer, but that is our heritage. So environmental science was something that was appealing to our parents. We see with that outdoor classrooms, beehives, greenhouse, raised garden beds. So the environmental sciences were really, that's kind of what our parents added to the piece. The technology, of course, Georgetown is very high on technology. We would like to increase our capacity to utilize technology. Of course, we have one-on-one devices. In a lot of the schools we visited, they had to spend some of their money on to be where we are with Oculus boards and one-on-one devices, so we're already in good shape. We visited schools with age-appropriate robots, robots for kindergarten students on up through high school. I mean, we found age-appropriate robots that our students could learn how to code and do wonderful things with robotics. We envision having a broadcast studio. In the area of reading, that was the last thing we added, the R, because in all practicality, all of Georgetown County schools have been trying to improve reading forever. And Miss Patty's sitting here, bless her heart, that was her mission, and I know that's dear to her heart. So we added the R for reading. We would like to continue on that course, and we would like to emphasize reading within the STREAM theme. Engineering, there was a program we liked in particular. Engineering is elementary curriculum. We envision having a maker space and a STREAM lab. Now, we also added arts because all of our kids are not going to be inclined to robots and engineering. And so we have a lot of kids who have interest in the arts. And so we added that with an emphasis on the visual arts, not to steal from Browns Ferry's thunder of the performing arts. And math, we would just like to increase hands-on math. We came up with the design thinking process. This would be a way to attack any problem that we would like to instill in our students. The first step is to plan, define the problem, and brainstorm solutions. Come up with a design, create the best solution based on predictions, test, observe and test the solution and identify modifications, and communicate, share, and explain what was learned. So how would we integrate STREAM into our school? There's 3 areas. First of all, core, project-based learning, monthly STREAM challenges, and I'll give you an example of that. One of the schools we visited, the STEM challenge was for students to catch a turkey. They had to build a turkey trap, and it was around Thanksgiving. So they brought this robot into class and had a turkey face on it, and they would put it in the middle of these traps that the kids had built, and their mission was to try to trap the turkey. So that's just an example of what a monthly STREAM challenge would look like. We would have a maker space with all these raw materials where the teachers would take their students to the maker space, lab, and they would have all the materials to build these traps and these other wonderful ideas that they have in their minds. So that's one way to integrate it into our core with these monthly stream challenges. Also, we anticipate having authentic assessments and very much cooperative learning. Enrichment, we would add an additional special area class. That would be a stream lab, and that would probably be where the engineering as elementary curriculum would be housed, and also the robotics. And with expeditions, we foresee having clubs, and I know we're up for accreditation next year, and clubs is always something that it looks good on your resume, so to speak. So we envision having clubs, and this would allow teachers and students choice. They could join the clubs that they would like to join, and the teachers could offer clubs according to their interest. So that's Pleasant Hill Stream Academy. Do you have any questions? I know you're tired. Thank you for your attention.
Greetings, Dr. Lance, Mr. Price, board members. I know Mr. Graham said he wasn't going to farm, but we're neighbors, and I saw him on his shiny new tractor just a week or so ago, so that's why I asked him that. Before I begin, let me just say, teachers have a daunting task ahead of them because today's child is much different from children 10 years ago, children 20 years ago, even 5 years ago. We have to compete with so much. And the way I see this magnet program, these different themes that we're pitching to you guys, is the connection, okay? Especially with a special needs student. If you don't make that connection, you're beating a dead horse, okay? Because they have to see the connection, okay? And I apologize for reading this to you, but every time I did this, I missed something, okay? So we're going to go, and if you have questions, please let me know. I just want to talk to you a little bit about our journey. Our journey began with our administrative team concerning the possibility of becoming a magnet school, where we discussed STEM and arts, as this was where our heart lies. As you all know, and I've expressed this to you before, STEM is where my heart lies, but there's no I in team, okay? And my team really helped me see that we need to really focus on the arts as well. We then met with our SALT team, where we presented ideas along with some research. The conversation moved right to STEM and the arts. It was decided that we wanted to be able to kind of umbrella the 3 feeder schools to develop some consistency for those kids coming in to Carvers Bay Middle. And STREAM was our point of emphasis. As the discussion progressed, we included the entire staff. Being the group of go-getters that they are, of course, they're all on board. The excitement was refreshing because, you know, folks like innovative new stuff, especially with the young staff. We then held 2 separate meetings with our School Improvement Council and our Title I committee. The first was just simply to introduce. Then the second was to establish our theme. Following the meeting, we surveyed the different groups, and the theme that you see before you is what we came up with. STEAM, imagine, inquire, invent, inspire. The S stands for science, where we want to infuse inquiry-based learning into everything that we do. The T stands for technology, where technology would be incorporated cross-curricular. We want our students to work on coding with our Now robots that have been purchased previously, and our qubits and with Makerspace. We purchased these items before the magnet era came to us here at Carvers Bay Middle, so this would be something that we would want in addition to that. We would add to that. The E stands for engineering, where we would like to have our own fab lab to foster creativity and project-based learning. The A stands for arts. After researching, what I found is that this is kind of the glue that holds everything together. I talked to you a little bit about making that connection. The A develops cognitive creativity and engagement. Without that, that's where the connection lies for our kids. The M stands for math, where we want our students to engage in authentic, purposeful learning. If we receive this grant, we will transform our school into a collaborative space. Classrooms will be furnished to accommodate, while the transition space in general, we will receive a facelift to help us scream our theme. Remember, if we say it long enough, it becomes a part of you. Imagine, inquire, invent, inspire. The schools in which we visited were Muller Road Middle. This was an Avid school that really focused on college and career readiness. The next we visited Lang Middle School. This was an award-winning school. Their focus was on science and technology. This is where we stumbled upon the Fab Lab. Also, Saluda Steam Trail is where we did a Zoom call with their team. They are still reeling from COVID, so they really helped us in the process that I just described to you as far as getting this off the ground. I will tell you that the two schools, Lang and Muller Road, are no longer, they're not funded by the grant, so they are sustaining this program as we speak. Any questions? Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Lance, board members, Mr. Price, and I think the only ones left is our district staff. I will be presenting to you tonight the Carvers Bay High School Early College Update. All of the pathways that you heard of tonight, all of the themes introduced, we will cover them continuously at Carvers Bay Early College High School. Our process began with discussions with our faculty, staff, parents, community, SIC, and PTO. Our first meeting we had back in the fall. We had 2 meetings in the fall, and then we just finished wrapping up one in the spring. Our first meeting was basically to discuss the magnet theme. And the 2 magnet themes that we've initially introduced was a military magnet and an early college high school. The unanimous choice was the early college high school. Our key visits: Whale Branch Early College High School located in Beaufort. And we've selected Whale Branch as our model that we will follow. Why? The similarities in demographics. Secondly, geographical location. It's a rural early college. And then finally, the student enrollment. Their student enrollment is 362 currently, and ours is 379. The military magnet. Well, it failed really quickly, and I think some of the discouraging factors were we would probably lose enrollment with students because of the discipline that comes along with the military magnet. So that was one of the key things that caused the military magnet to fail. Then we did some studies. We studied the Horry County Early College Program. Well, that wasn't really particularly a good model for us to study because all the high schools in Horry County, basically they're incorporated in that early college. So every high school will send their students to that one school, essentially to make that early college effective. Now, what's attractive? What is attractive about the early college high school? Well, pathways, the different pathways that we can offer our students. The first one, well, a lot of people, well, are we going to still have the same curriculum? Yes, we will. Initially we will have College Prep, CP, which is currently our high school diploma track that we currently work on. We will continue to have honors program. We will continue to have dual enrollment, which is the option to take college credits and transfer them towards a degree. And most of you are aware we do that through Georgetown Technical College. The attractive part is the associate's degree. you would have an opportunity to obtain an associate's degree by the time you graduate from Carvers Bay Early College High School. We focus on pathways in STEM. The S stands for science. We will offer biomeds. Technology, that would be computer science. Engineering, we currently offer robotics, but we will enhance those programs. And then our math options, we will offer all the math options through the current model that we have, and also an initiative called NIMSY. We will have the performing arts. We will have drama, music, dance, an opportunity for our students to perform. We will upgrade to theater style when we look at our auditorium. Visual arts, drawing, painting, photography, and we will add a pottery class. Culinary arts, we will upgrade the current culinary arts facility, and we will add what I call an MKT, a mobile kitchen trailer. That's one of the things we requested, and we felt as though that would really be a big asset to the community, because there are not many restaurants, I think, as you know, in Carvers Bay area. So having a food truck or an MKT, we could have that set up in the afternoons and evening, and as long as the word's out, the community have an opportunity to come purchase a burger, or a burger basket, or whatever we determine that we'll sell on that MKT. Ag science, we will partner. We're starting to work a partnership with Keto Farms to provide on-site and off-site skill enhancements. I really like the on-site skill enhancements, because they talk a lot about traditionally how we look at gardening and farming. With Keto Farms, they want to come in and help teach us how to build beds, like flower beds. So you do that actually when you, I guess, planting crops. So if you're planting, let's say, butter beans, you build a bed for it. And the bed is an attractive, just almost like a flower bed. And each student would have their own bed, and they could actually sell produce or whatever they manufacture, or whatever they raised in their gardens. So I kind of like that idea, because it makes it look more attractive. And I never thought of ag science and gardening or planting stuff such as that. One of the key partners that we have is Georgetown Ori Tech, and we've met with them. They will help us with teachers' eligibility, admission requirements, and they will continue to offer other learning opportunities on-site and virtually. All of our classes won't be on campus. Some of those classes will continue to be hosted at Georgetown Ori Technical College. We will continue to have access to their technical scholars program, which is welding, HVAC, and machine tools. Subject to your questions, that concludes my brief.
I just have one statement.
Yes, ma'am.
When you're talking about students receiving an Associate of Arts or Associate of Science, I think it's really important that you have the students work closely with Ori Georgetown Tech, because most students, even in high school, do not know what the requirements are, or how they do an education plan so they can meet all the requirements. So I think that's a really good idea.
And yes, ma'am, we're in a continuous collaboration and meetings with Georgetown Ori Tech, and we will develop those flyers of what eligibility criteria look like, what it would look like for teachers, actually teachers' requirements that they'll be able to teach some of the classes. I think we already know that it's a master's degree with 18 hours in that content area. So all of those things, we're continuing to visit, we're continuing to collaborate, and we're continuing to meet. But a lot of it, I know we're kind of waiting until the grant is approved, and we'll have more funding to go out and do those, I guess, more visits. Any other questions?
Mr. Odom, you're a certified guidance counselor too, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
So this really parallels well with your background.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
So that concludes kind of a long presentation, but believe it or not, a very surface level overview of what this magnet application could bring. And I have to commend our principals, number one, for coming to present to the board tonight. I know no one really volunteers to do that, so I thank them for doing that. But they have really stepped up and led the charge with their faculty and their community to brainstorm and to dream. And what I've learned through this process is we have a lot of passionate, invested educators who want the absolute best for their students. And that includes our community members who want the absolute best for our students. And if we are successful with this application, this program will allow us to bring some really, really unique opportunities to our students that otherwise they may not have. And if we can get our students to dream big the way our principals and our teachers and our counselors and our parents have been doing through this process, then providing them with these opportunities are going to open up so many more windows. And they will have the choice to select their pathway, whatever it may be. And then our challenge is then to equip them to be successful in it. This gives us a really awesome opportunity to do some unique things for the students in this area. We're really excited about it. We feel like this type of a magnet program, this grant, was designed for our Carvers Bay area schools. We feel like we're a good match. Our partners, the team that helped us write our application, they feel like we're a good match. So we hope to get some good news in the fall and then begin planning, continue planning for a 23-24 launch. So I appreciate you hanging in there with those different presentations, and if there are any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Okay, hearing none, thank you very much.
Okay.
That was good.
Oh, boy. I think that's it. Any other board or superintendent comments?
Need a trash can.
Anybody?
He has it.
He has Go ahead.
I always have more to share. Thank you, Dr. Lance, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Thank you for hanging in there with us tonight. As you can see, we have a lot of great things happening in GCSD right now. Let me first begin by congratulating Mr. Ben Tester from Waccamaw Middle, who was named the Georgetown County Teacher of the Year last week. We've also had a couple of students achieve some milestones since our last meeting. Elijah Fesperman of Georgetown High, who plays for the Carvers Bay High School golf team, won the Class A Individual State Championship. And Olivia Johnson from Waccamaw High was named a National Merit Scholar. Two noteworthy accomplishments for two of our students. Elijah and Olivia will also be recognized at an upcoming board meeting. We still have a number of events to wrap up before our last day of school on June 3rd. Tomorrow, we will have our induction teacher celebration where we will name the GCSD Rookie of the Year. Next week, on the 26th, we will have our annual luncheon where we will name our support staff employee and our bus driver of the year. Our final community presentation for the modified calendar is also scheduled next week for May 24th at Georgetown High. We will not meet again before our seniors walk across the stage, so I want to wish all of our pending graduates all the success in the world as they prepare to begin the next phase of their personal pathway. And finally, I want to thank Mr. Teddy Graham for all of his service and contributions to Pleasant Hill and to Georgetown County School District. Teddy Graham is as steady as they come, and he is a rock-solid leader. Much of Pleasant Hill's success is a direct result of Teddy's hard work. And he also prepares, as he prepares for the next phase of his personal pathway, I want him to know that he will leave a legacy of inspiration for so many that will last for many, many years to come. Well done, Mr. Graham, for your hard work has definitely paid off. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Without objection, meeting is adjourned.